The goal today is really to get an understanding of how remote exhibit sharing works using a Zoom meeting, and how we landed on some of our best practices. I think explaining why we chose to do what we did may help kind of give people some broader understanding here as well. I think the biggest context that I can give everyone, and I mentioned this on our last webinar as a reminder, but the functional reality of a completely remote depot where everyone is in their own, they're joining from their home or from their business, but everyone's in a completely different location, differs a lot from what you may have remembered or have experienced yourselves in a remote depot to date. Most remote depots have one person, maybe the taking attorney that's remote, and the opposing counsel, the witness, and everyone else will be in the same place. And the byproduct of that is when you get everyone else in the same place, we as a court reporting agency can send a highly technical person there, traditionally a videographer, to set up a screen and to set up anything that you might need to be able to ensure that all the parties that are there in the same room together are consuming the information that you as a taking attorney are putting out in the world in the way that it was intended. Obviously, with everyone being remote, now we're all on different devices. Some people are on their phones. Some people are on iPads, some people are on laptops, and we need to account for that. So that's where, again, when we walk through exhibit sharing today, we're going to try and give some broader perspective as to why we made the choices we did. I'm going to share one slide here really quickly. It may give some context for background. So my background is in technology. I've done a few different tech startups, and a good adage that I've often seen and heard from one of my previous co-founders is he would always say that good technology should feel like magic and really emulate what happens in real life. And that's our goal here today, is to walk you guys through this so that way, as you guys are sharing exhibits, when you're doing these remote depots, it should feel as normal as possible. And that's really, again, our goal here. So the first thing that we're going to cover a couple of different topics today. We're going to cover how do you share exhibits. We're going to cover what the opposing party would see when you're sharing exhibits, whether that be opposing counsel or a witness. And we've got a cool side-by-side demo, so you'll be able to actually see two computers at the same time, which is really helpful, we found. We're going to cover why we picked Box.com for exhibit sharing. And then we're going to talk about how to annotate exhibits and how to close a depot. And that's really our goal today, is to get everyone up to speed in that regard. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so let me see, now that I've got this set up. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to share my screen again here, and give me 1 second. So what you're going to see on my screen is two screens side by side. And on the left side, you're going to see what a taking attorney would traditionally see if they were taking a depot. And on the right side, you're going to see what Luke, our witness, would see if he were taking a depot. So on the left side here we have two monitors set up, and hopefully you guys can see that. I'm seeing it on my screen. The reason why we do this is we set it up in such a way so that way, as Dylan is introducing exhibits, you'll see exactly what Luke is seeing on his screen. For context, we have Luke has joined, and he's also joined as two separate witnesses. And he's joined on his phone. He's also joined on his computer in a number of different ways. And the goal of that is to really ensure that you guys can see the full perspective of what happens on a mobile device, as well as what happens on your computer. So it'll give you full perspective as to how all the pieces work. So the first thing that we're going to cover is, let's see. The first thing we're going to cover here is why we chose to share links over chat. And Dylan, if you could actually walk through the normal flow that you would walk through if you were to share an exhibit, that would be really great. And let's just pretend that the depot has already started, and you've started to question the witness, and now you have an exhibit that you want to introduce. Why don't you go ahead and do that here?
Sure. So when I use exhibits for remote depots, what I do ahead of time is email all of those exhibits to Steno. And in response, before the deposition starts, Steno sends me an email, like Greg has on the taking attorney side here. And this email has all of the exhibits that I sent. They've all been hyperlinked into these Box.com hyperlinks. And so this email is only shared with me. So prior to the depo, the only people who have any knowledge of what exhibits I might use during the deposition are obviously just me and Steno. This isn't shared with opposing counsel, and this isn't shared with the witness ahead of time. And so what I do is I actually create a split screen here where I have the Zoom kind of remote depo taking up half my screen, and I have this email taking up the other half of my screen, so that when I want to introduce an exhibit, what I do is I find the exhibit that I want to use, and this, for purposes of this example, we'll say I want to introduce this hallway.jpg exhibit. What I would do is right-click it and click copy link address, and then I would go over to the Zoom meeting and paste it in the chat window. Just like Greg's doing there, and I would type exhibit 1 so that it's clear. I would say on the record, I am marking this document as exhibit 1. I would paste the link into the chat window, which would create, which would promote the hyperlink or share the hyperlink with the witness and all other parties. They could all click on that link on their end. I would also share my screen to make sure that the witness is seeing what I'm seeing. And I would clarify for the record that I had just pasted a hyperlink into the chat thread. I would ask the witness to confirm that they've received that hyperlink. I would ask the witness to confirm that they've clicked on that hyperlink and that they're able to see the same thing that I'm sharing on my screen. Once they confirm all those things are true, then I would stop sharing my screen and begin my line of questionings with the witness to get him to authenticate the document, lay foundation, and do whatever else I need to do.
So for argument's sake, I mean, you might say to Luke, are you able to see the picture of the hallway on the screen? Luke, you would say yes. And then if you ask Luke to then click on that link, he could then come in here, click on the chat, and load this document natively on his screen. So he's now able to use whatever device he's on. And we'll show what this looks like on a phone as well, so you guys can see the difference. With one picture like this, it's pretty straightforward. And for the most part, if you're using single document exhibits, sharing this is fairly straightforward.
Greg, you may want to just address briefly kind of why this is done through Box, and also just let people know whether they have to have a Box account ahead of time, or whether the witness or opposing counsel needs to be set up with Box.com.
Yeah, so, and we'll touch on this in a little bit broader detail, but you don't need to have a Box account. We on Steno side, if you hire us to help you with your court reporting here, we take care of everything on your behalf. So you're not having to deal with those links. You're not having to deal with creating it. You're not having to deal with any of the back and forth. And that's, again, where we can come in and really take the heavy lifting out of this process for our taking attorneys. I'm going to show, before I go into the finer points on Box here, I do want to show one thing here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for 1 second. And while I do that, I'm going to change this out so you guys can see what this looks like with a mobile device on my screen instead. And then Dylan, what I'm going to have you do is share a larger PDF. And that larger PDF will be, let's call it, a couple of pages long, but you'll see what text looks like on somebody's phone when it's pulling up and how different that looks as compared to a photo. So as an example here, when Dylan's showing this photo, he's got a portrait style photo that's coming up on a big wide screen here. Now if we take that same share, and I'm going to share my screen again here. So again, on the left, Dylan shared this photo, and now what Luke is seeing on the right-hand side of his screen is Dylan's shared screen. So you got to remember that people could potentially be joining from their phones or otherwise, and the net result of this is that he's got this tiny little frame of reference to view that exhibit. If Luke were instead to click on the participant view here and then click on chat, he could then look at that same exhibit, load it up in Box, and now he's seeing that photo, but it's taking up and leveraging the full real estate from his phone so he can actually view that himself. Dylan, if we can go back to a different example here, maybe you can walk through what it would be like to share this deposition notice.
Sure. So I would do it in the same way. I would right-click it and I would paste it into the chat thread there, and make a record of what I'm doing so that the court reporter has everything as part of the record. Same, I would ask the witness to confirm that he's able to click on it and open it, and then once he did, I would be able to direct him to specific pages within that depo notice.
And for argument's sake, Dylan, let's say you were to share your screen here with that depo notice, and you were to pull that depo notice up. Give me 1 second here. So it's now loading on my side, and as soon as this loads, what again Luke is seeing on his side as the witness is this tiny little piece of text. It's very hard to read. And moreover, now if Dylan wants to direct him to page 2, Dylan has to scroll down, get him to the right page, and navigate this. So I think one of the conversations Dylan and I had with this process when we said we want this to emulate what would happen if you were there in person as much as possible is that we wanted to make sure that he wasn't having to do all of this navigating while he was also trying to figure out his line of questioning. And Dylan, I think you said this to me the other day, but I'm trying to think 3 steps ahead when I'm taking a deposition. And if you're trying to think 3 steps ahead while also trying to figure out how to best kind of get the deponent to the right place, it can definitely be cumbersome. So that's where, again, Luke can now come in here. He can just view this in the chat, and you could direct them in the same way that you ordinarily would and say, hey, I want you to scroll to page 2 and find the middle paragraph. And Luke is able to do that himself, again, the same way that you would be able to do if you were there in person. And that's why we chose to use Box to be able to share these links. It allows for people to view that stuff natively on their own devices. And using the full real estate of whatever device they're on and whatever sort of orientation that device is in, whether that be landscape mode or portrait mode or otherwise. One other thing that I do want to show here is, before we jump in, or as we start talking about Box, there are some other kind of components to this. So I have seen people that are out there that are trying to share exhibits in this chat thread. And there's an option here to share a file, and I want to show you what this looks like when I'm trying to share what potentially is like a 77-page document. It's a 100-megabyte file. It's nothing that unusual, I think, for many of you guys when you're taking a depo to share a document that big. But if I were to do that here, this is a 100-megabyte file, and now I'm introducing this document, and it's taking a while to upload here. So you could think of that similar to the situation where somebody drops an exhibit on you at the last second. It's 300 pages and they give you 1 copy, and then you're running out to try and get that all copied so that way you can actually use it during the depo. The same thing is happening here. I'm uploading a 100-megabyte document and we're all sitting around and waiting for it. This is one of the areas where technology can actually improve this process quite a bit. So as this is uploading here, there's another problem, and it's going to take too long to upload, but once this finishes uploading on Luke's side when he's on his mobile device over here, what ends up happening is that link may actually not even be readable on his mobile device. Zoom doesn't allow for large file sizes and has issues like that. So again, that's where pre-uploading these exhibits helps as much as possible to streamline this process. Comparatively, Dylan could take that same 100-page document. He could go to his email inbox. This is that same long PDF here. He could copy this link just the way he has for the rest of these. He could name this link Exhibit 3 and paste that in here. And immediately on this side, that document still isn't here from chat, but from the upload, but in the chat here, there it is already as a link. One thing to keep in mind, and people don't often think about this, on any of your home internet connections, likely you have a much faster download speed than an upload speed. Most people have like a 20 times faster download speed than an upload speed. So the net result of that is when you're trying to upload a large document mid-deposition, that's where you can get in trouble where it becomes problematic to share that and so forth. Dylan, does that kind of cover off on most of the stuff that you were looking for in that context? Yeah, and if we can maybe show everybody how these things can be annotated by the witness also. Yeah, of course. So why don't we pull up I'm going to pull up this photo of the building. So I think that'll give you more to work with here, Dylan. And maybe you can direct Luke how you would ordinarily if you wanted him to mark something on here. And actually, give me 1 second here, guys. I'm going to swap this back out to be in a computer just for argument's sake. It's going to be a little bit more straightforward. as that's loading up. Let's swap this over. Share my screen again. Okay, and Dylan, if you want to direct Luke here on the Annotate side, that would be great.
Sure. So in this example, I would have shared this photo of a building, and I want the witness to identify a particular window on the building. Maybe it's a product liability case or something similar. So I would just, again, introduce the exhibit as normal, lay the foundation, and then ask the witness if he recognized, the window that broke. And the witness would say yes, and then I would tell the witness, why don't you go ahead and draw a red circle around the window that you contend broke in this litigation.
Great, and I think that gives you an idea. So this circle is now showing up on both sides of the screen. If I'm on Dylan's side, I could say, hey, are you sure that's the window maybe? And I want to clear this so I can clear just my drawings or all drawings, or clear the viewer's drawings. In this case, I'm going to clear all drawings. And Dylan, maybe you wanted to ask another question here. Go ahead.
I don't know what other question I would ask. Can you point to or can you draw a green circle around the window that did not break from this building?
Great. And Dylan's seeing this again at the same time in real time. And then Dylan, maybe you can talk to what you believe the best practices are for now introducing that exhibit because of the fact that this isn't actually being written on a paper document. So it's not going to be retained with, I think this was exhibit 4. That writing, we video all of our depots at Steno on Zoom, but that writing on that photo won't actually, at that point, Luke is not actually writing on the exhibit here. He is, in fact, just writing on the screen. So Dylan, maybe you can talk through that.
Yeah, so what I would do is this photo of the building would be separately marked as an exhibit. I think in this example, it was exhibit 3 or exhibit 4 to the deposition. I would also say that on the record that the witness has annotated this exhibit, and we are going to separately mark the annotated version as exhibit 4A or 3A, whatever number it is. And then at the end, Steno would need to go in there and capture a screen grab of the annotations over the exhibit, and that would become its own exhibit. So at the end, the deposition transcript would have the original unannotated version, as well as whatever annotations the witness had made.
Got it. And to that end, again, you put in here exhibit 4A, marked version. So with all of this, you're always trying to keep a record of this. So we have that Zoom chat thread going. We'll talk about that at the end of how we we're working with our court reporters to lever that chat thread to make sure that all of that gets introduced into part of the record and so forth properly. Let me go through my agenda here. So I think this gives everyone a better sense of what people are seeing when they share exhibits now. I think one of the follow-ons to this is that we got asked was, well, what happens if somebody wants to share an exhibit during a depo? Dylan, if you can actually email me to Greg at Steno, I will upload that exhibit for you. Or maybe, you know what, for argument's sake, we can just go into Box here. And maybe if I was Dylan and it said, okay, great, I'm the taking attorney, I have an exhibit, opposing counsel, send it to me, I'd go to my inbox, download it to my desktop. I'm gonna then go in here, find the file that I wanna upload. And maybe this is the file I wanna upload. It's gonna upload here. Once this uploads, I can come into here and hit share. And then I copy this link at the bottom, and now I've made a new publicly available link that I can just take and, again, share in the chat thread in the same way that I ordinarily would. There's one.
Greg, can you briefly, we got some questions in about how you did that annotating. Could you just briefly show everybody kind of step by step what the witness needs to do to annotate an exhibit?
Yeah, and I think there was also a question there about whether or not that's by mouse or by pen. This is definitely, they're doing this by mouse if they're on a computer. and they're doing this by mouse if they're on a computer, or they're doing it with just their finger if they're on a tablet or a mobile device. So in here, I'm going to share my screen again as if Dylan was presenting an exhibit. And we're back over here. So on here, you're going to tell the witness, hey, click on View Options, click on Annotate, and then pick a color. The default here is pen. So no matter what device you're on, it's going to default to a pen and some sort of color. Unless you need them to change the color, they can just write on it with whatever color is already defaulted there. And they just left click and draw around whatever you want them to draw on. One of the things that we've done, and one of the things that we prioritize, is really educating witnesses in the 30 minutes prior to a deposition starting. So whether that be you guys as taking attorneys, opposing counsel, the court reporter, as a default way of setting up these webinars, we always have one of our Steno ambassadors like Luke that will join these webinars. Let's say join one of these remote depositions. So if your deposition starts at 10, we'll be on at 9:30. We'll greet everyone. We'll make sure that we can see and hear them, and make sure that they can see and be heard. And the goal of that, again, is to make sure that this goes off without a hitch. And that's really, again, what we're after, is to make sure that there's clarity here, so that way everyone can see and hear each other.
And Greg, what happens if you hit the save button on this annotate screen here?
So it saves the exhibit there. I can show it in a folder here, and I can take that screenshot, and I can just upload that straight into Box again. So I could take that screenshot and upload it to Box and introduce that exhibit on the fly as a named exhibit.
And that screenshot there, that captures the annotations?
Last time I checked it does. Let's pull it up just to make sure. And there it is. Right, so that's really a best practice. You can have them save that screenshot in person, or you as a taking attorney can save that in person and go from there. So that covers really annotations. Again, it's pretty straightforward. You on your side also as the taking attorney, I saw this happen the other day. If the witness is maybe not as tech savvy, and they're not sure how to annotate, they can come in here and click on Annotate. So if Dylan was like, hey, are you sure it was that one? Are you sure it's not this one? And maybe Dylan could even draw on the window himself. If they're having a problem annotating, you can come in here and annotate yourself and say, hey, I've drawn a circle around the top right window. Can you confirm that the green circle that you see around the top right window is in fact the room or the window that was broken? So in a pinch, if they're not able to do it themselves, if they're having a hard time with the technology, that's an alternative approach. So Danica asks, when you say educating the witness in advance of the depo, do you visually show them like you're showing us now? We're more than happy to. I think this build and this screen that you're seeing right now is a custom build that I set up so I could demo this today. We're actually, as we set it up, it became very apparent that this may be one of those things that would be helpful to walk people through. I think one of the parts of this that I think this has been so helpful in, specifically the demo is just showing, is typically when you share your screen with Zoom, it takes away all of the user interface controls. So we've, to date, have taken to just showing screenshots on our screen so we can direct people, and then we put big red arrows on that screenshot and we say, hey, click on the Annotate button. We have like a presentation that we do as Steno moderators and ambassadors to kind of help people through this. So generally within 30 minutes, it's more than enough time to kind of walk people through how to annotate stuff. And we will, as a means of just kind of making sure that stuff goes smoothly, ask you guys ahead of time, hey, do you know if you're planning on asking your witness to annotate anything on exhibits or otherwise? And then we can be prepared to train them and so forth within those minutes leading up to the call. Cool. So I'm going to keep going here. So that gives people a better sense of what they're seeing when they share exhibits. One other thing that I wanted to cover, there's a few other solutions that are out there. And this just generally for exhibit sharing. They're expensive, and quite frankly, for this kind of environment where, again, you can't control the manner in which people are consuming this information, you really want to be on something like Zoom. Zoom is the industry leader for video conferencing. Again, I have a background in technology, and one of the adages we would always see in our startups was, hey, if you are building a project or working on a project, if it's not your core competency, you shouldn't be trying to build it yourself. So there are a number of competitors out there that are specifically in the litigation space that are building litigation web conferencing type tools. And they have a lot of features that might be and seem great, but I will tell you, in this kind of environment where you have all these distributed people, you want to maximize and optimize for people being able to see and hear each other and be seen and heard. And that's the biggest and most important part. And the functionality that Zoom brings to this is that they have compression algorithms that are making the video still come across loud and clear, even though somebody might be on a lower bandwidth. So I would, if it were me as a taking attorney, I would rather trade all of the features in the world. I'd rather exchange all those features for a clear call that I can hear everyone and see everyone, and that they can write on the exhibits. And that's why we're leveraging the Zoom chat, the Zoom chat thread to take care of exhibit handling, as opposed to any of these other tools that are out there today. You may also have questions like, why can't you use Dropbox or Google Drive or any of those other features? I can actually show you guys on Dropbox here. I think I had one live here yesterday. So I'm going to share my screen one more time. And sorry, bear with me. Sharing my screen. And if I were to go into Dropbox here, just the net result of this, and actually I want to show one thing before that when I'm saying this. So if I go in here and I go to chat and I want to share an exhibit here, I can use this file function and go into Dropbox or Box. If I link up via Box and I've already connected my account, I'm now into my Box account. I have to connect this. It's going to keep going here. I'm going to stop these annotations. So bear with me one moment while I connect. So I'm having problems even connecting to my Box account here. And this is part of the reason why, again, we recommend pre-uploading the links and so forth. I'm having a hard time even showing it to you here, ironically. But there are a number of steps that it takes to actually go through and make all this happen to basically connect my Box account, click 3 links deep, and then finally I'm able to find the file on my Box account to be able to share, and then it asks me a bunch more questions. And that's infinitely more steps than just copying and pasting a link from email. So that's why we're pre-setting these in emails, so that way people can easily share these and see these, and it doesn't take a lot of overhead for you guys as taking attorneys. Dylan, do you want to talk? So I think we covered annotation here. We covered how we introduce an annotated exhibit. Dylan, maybe we can talk to like recommended language that you would use to close a depo in relation to this exhibit chat thread.
Yeah, what I do at the end of the deposition, because we want to make the chat thread an exhibit to the deposition itself, so that it contains almost like an audit trail of the specific documents that were introduced electronically. Because what happens on the tail end of this is that the Box account or the Box folder is shared with a court reporter, who could then go in there and download each of these exhibits to attach them to the transcript. And so at the end of the deposition, I just note for the record that we are going to make the chat thread its own exhibit. And so, you know, if we finished, if I showed the witness exhibits 1 through 5, the chat thread would be marked as exhibit 6. And then I know at the end of it, it'll be just like this, printed out and appended to the transcript as its own exhibit.
So on our side, on the agency side, what we will do is we then take this chat thread, we send it to the court reporter, and we say, hey, this is our understanding of how the exhibits, we know the exhibits. Can you confirm that? They'll say yes. And then separately, we also have now all of these files that we had in Box here. All those exhibits are already in one place. We can share that with the court reporter, with our production team, and everything goes smoothly. We aren't chasing down exhibits or otherwise, because of the fact they all got uploaded to the same place. It makes it really streamlined and seamless for everyone involved. There's another question that came in from Vita. She asked, my concern is that the unsophisticated witness, let alone another language, let alone in another language with an interpreter, as well as technological problems on the witness end, phone battery, frozen laptop. What do you do in those cases? So in cases where you are worried about that, we actually send over in advance a laptop, and I can show a video to you guys of that. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to find that. We share a video, or we send laptops, or sorry, not laptops, iPads ahead of time with a tripod on them. And when you get that, then all you have to do is to log in. Bear with me. Pulling up this video. And I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see this video. So this is the iPads that we send them. We pre-program the lock screen. We send this over. On here, if you guys can see, this says, please open them with the home button to the left. It's got a thumb over here on the left. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bigger so you can see it. And then it says, for help, call our phone number. I'm going to play this. It turns on its side, and then the button comes up, and then, hold on 1 second. I'll stop sharing here again and downsize this video because it was a little bit harder to see. Share this again one more time. So again, that's what it looks like. And when we send it over to people, it has a link to the Zoom app on the iPad pre-installed. It has click to open the Zoom app, click on join a meeting, and then enter the meeting ID. And it makes it super easy if you're a little worried that the witness is going to have problems with that. We have a bunch of iPads that we can send out to people, and we FedEx them out. They FedEx them back with a pre-addressed, self-addressed stamped envelope. It makes it seamless for you guys as a taking attorney that you're not worried that they're not going to be able to do this. And it comes with a tripod. They basically set it up, and we join again as meeting moderators. We can see the person in frame. And we can encourage them to either back it up or pull it forward so that way they get all set up. It also allows us to present the exhibits straight on that iPad as well, so they can see the exhibits on the iPad. We fully charge it. We send it with a charger as well in case they have any issues. We do charge a premium for that, obviously, for the technology and to get it all set up. But in cases where you think you're going to have a difficult witness, we highly recommend that. We can even get it to them a couple days ahead of time to just work through it with them to make sure that everything's going to run smoothly. Prior to the date of the depo itself. And somebody was asking for a rate sheet. Yes, we will. If you send us an email to concierge@steno.com, we can send out a rate sheet for everything that we are doing for our product, Depos From a distance, rather. We're more than happy to get that out to people so they can get a better sense of how it works and how to interact with all this stuff.
I would just say too that for those of you that don't feel comfortable dealing with these exhibits, cutting and pasting them into the chat thread and worrying about doing that during the course of the deposition, we recommend as kind of a best practice to have someone from your team, whether it's a paralegal or a legal assistant, join the remote deposition along with you. And take care of doing the exhibits, as you're going, so that you don't need to be the one that's messing around with it. And it would really be no different than having a paralegal or a legal assistant in a conference room with you during a deposition, which obviously attorneys do all the time. And in the remote deposition, it just makes it a little bit easier so that they can deal with the technology while you worry about asking the right questions.
Let's see. So somebody asked here, for a video depo, are the exhibit and the witness in a split screen? For James, that you asked that, the exhibit and the witness in a split screen, do you mean that in the regard of like, what are you seeing as the taking attorney, or do you mean that in the regard of what is the witness seeing? If you can send that clarity back, I can probably give you a more concise answer there. Are the videos of these depositions recorded, was a question from Josh. These depos are recorded, but they're recorded in the same way that you're seeing on the screen right now. You probably see us with a mosaic view and a bunch of different tiles. So we have Zoom recording. We can send that to you guys following depos. We do charge for it. It's a pretty nominal fee. I think it's like $150 for a traditional package. And we can pass that along to you guys. We have to edit it a little bit to cut off the beginning part and the end part and get it all properly set over to you. But that's what we do on our side, and that's not a problem. We separately can also do video recording of the witness in the same way that you would traditionally get it. So think about it with timestamps and everything else. I can pull up a video of that as well, although that may take me a second here. Dylan, actually, do you have that link handy for the mock depo video? Oh, no, we replaced it. I apologize. Let me pull it up here on our steno.zoom.us. I'm going to play this for you guys so you can see what this looks like on our YouTube channel here. So we do have more resources available online. I would encourage you guys to go check them out. With me, share my screen. So this is a video of a mock depo that we did, which shows that we can do real time, we can do picture-in-picture, all the stuff that you would normally see, we're able to provide here. That video that's in the top left, that's also in 1080p, so there's no degradation in quality relative to what you would have. The only major difference is that because we're not going there in person, we can't set up their background. And the lighting, sometimes we may need to direct them to get to a place that has better light. But as you can see here, she's getting this video. The subtitles are coming in. We get real time. Subtitles are coming in. And then as I zoom forward a little bit, you can actually see as Dylan introduces it, same hallway exhibit, ironically. We're getting that picture-in-picture reaction where this is the exhibit on the screen, and this is her reaction to that. So again, all this stuff, if done right, it should work and emulate just the same stuff that's happening if you were there in person. How much is it extra to FedEx and iPad for problematic witness ballpark? I think we charge $250 off the top of my head. It's a few $100 to get it all set up and get the ID in there and so forth. What does the video look like? I think that answered, James, your question in terms of what the video looks like. There's two types. Again, there's the Zoom recorded video as well as the video that you just were shown. And I think that ties to your next question, which is what will be seen if I show it in court. Ideally, you're getting the same video that you would ordinarily get, but just without the backdrop. Do you have any sample depo notices and stipulations that cover all of this? Dylan, I know, has a few. I don't know if, Dylan, if you have that part of the procedure code handy, if you could share your screen to cover that.
I don't have it handy. I'll try to find it, but it's CCP 2025. And I believe it's 2025 310. Let me just pull it up. Yeah, so 2025 310 allows for remote depositions. Everyone can see this here. It says a person may take, and any person other than the deponent may attend, a deposition by telephone or other remote electronic means. You'll see, though, that the CCP distinguishes between depositions of a party and depositions of all other witnesses. Depositions of a party presently need to be taken in person. Unless, of course, the parties stipulate that they will do it by another means. So I know that folks are working on legislation to clear that up, to allow remote depositions of all deponents, including parties. But until then, it's just a good idea at the beginning of a remote deposition to have everybody agree on the record that they stipulate to taking the deposition by remote means.
Cool. There's a few more questions on video in the chat that I'm seeing here. I'm going to circle back to these. We get to the end of it.
And Greg, while you're looking at that, sorry, I would just also tell everybody who doesn't know, first, there were some questions about the cost and rate cards and cost and the cost for sending out iPads. If everybody doesn't know, one of the other products that Steno offers is something we call dispersed pay, which means that all the costs are deferred until the case is resolved. So it doesn't cost the attorneys or the law firm anything. Our cost would come out when funds are dispersed, and obviously come out of the client share at the end of the case.
Cool. Yana, you had asked a question earlier, is there a way to do a mock deposition and all this setup prior to taking the official deposition? Yeah, we send out invites to everyone so they can check it out. And when I say send out invites to everyone, on the invite for the deposition itself, we have a link in there where anybody can go on there, sign up for a training, and sign up to interact with these tools themselves ahead of time. So that way they can get comfortable with it. And again, we're happy to do that for the witness, for defense counsel as well. Lisa, you had asked, I'd like to see defense counsel. Will I be able to see them? Yes, you will on every video depo that we've done so far. Everyone's joining with their faces on. And in fact, we actually encourage all people to join with their faces on to the benefit of the court reporter. The court reporter is used to seeing audio feed that goes and matches. They're used to hearing words come out of your mouth as well as you're seeing your face move at the same time. So what the court reporters generally are doing is they're setting up this gallery view, and then they can see who's talking and speaking and making objections. It makes it a lot easier for them to kind of make that all happen. Katrina, you asked, Dylan's mouth does not match the words. There's a lag. Is that the app or the connection? That may be your connection. He's coming through pretty consistently on my side. So that may be part of the issue. There may be a small lag here, but generally we recommend people, and this is again why we join our calls as moderators for the 30 minutes ahead of time before the meeting starts. If there are any of those audio issues, we can do our best to troubleshoot them. In cases where the video does lag, we will recommend that people call in on their phone. We don't do that as a default means of process because of the fact that sometimes people's Wi-Fi connection, I know Dylan is a great example at his house, he's got better Wi-Fi than he does phone connection. So he's better off actually calling in via the computer audio than he is via phone connection. He'll get a clear signal for everyone on the call. And that's, again, the kind of stuff that we troubleshoot as part of our service. One of the questions here, what is the internet capabilities does the witness and defense counsel need to have in order to participate? Because it would be awful to start and to find out there's a bad connection. Zoom's minimum recommended guidelines are 1.5 megabits, not megabytes, but megabits per second, per megabits per second. And if you go to speed test, which I'm putting in the chat thread here, you can see what your upload and your download speed is. And you actually need to have 1.5 megabits per second for both upload and download speed to maximize or to increase the likelihood that you're not going to have any issues. Granted, somebody could have speeds faster than that, but they still might have technology or computer problems. So usually when we've seen stuff like this happen, they'll either have a bad microphone, they might have great internet and a bad microphone, and you're still going to have a problem. So they might have a hardware problem just as much as they might have an internet problem. I think that about covers it. I think we covered all the stuff that came in on the Q&A. Oh, this is a good question here. I assume there's no way to prevent defense counsel from writing notes or pointing to pre-written answers to the deponent mid-question, so the witness can be at his home or office. I'm going to cover both of those. So to prevent defense counsel from doing anything shady, there are elements of this, obviously with everyone being remote, that are not ideal. If you truly wanted to ensure that that wasn't a problem and defense counsel and the witness were in the same room, we could send 2 iPads, one that would be on the witness themselves and a separate one where you'd ask them to set up the iPad to have a full view of the room. And then you would therein, if I'm the taking attorney, see not only the witness on camera, but I'd see everyone's hands and so forth. You're still probably not going to be able to prevent them from kicking anyone under the table, but at least you'll see everything above the table of what's being passed across the table and so forth. So that's an idea if you have a particularly difficult opposing counsel where you don't trust them. We charge a premium for that, obviously, but that's what I'd recommend on that front.
Greg, we also disable the private chat functionality, right?
Yep, we do. We certainly do. Dylan, you asked, there's another question here from James. In an old school deposition, I have witnesses hold it up. I think he means an exhibit for the video guy and to get it on video that it's shown in court. Here, the witness cannot hold up an exhibit, so it's on a split screen. I'm not fully sure the question still, Dylan. Maybe you can add some clarity.
Yeah, I think that this is answered by the picture-in-picture that we get done in post-production. So you would see at the same time the video of the witness, and you would see on the video the exhibit that's being introduced. I think that answers the question. But Greg, maybe you want to show just that portion of the video one more time?
Yeah, of course. Hold on one second. Oh, do I have something? Hold on. Apologies, guys. I got the wrong screen popped up here. Yeah, this one's better. And here's that portion at the end. That's the picture-in-picture. So Dylan introduces the exhibit. Should be coming up. And as soon as he introduces the exhibit, we're getting a cut of that. Again, we're doing a lot of this in post-production. It's actually part of the reason why we're working with Luke as well. He's got a background in video editing, and he's been helping us kind of get all these cuts together. But again, we charge a little bit extra for that. We do need to know about it ahead of time so we can set it up and make it happen for people. But that's the idea, is that we're able to provide all the same materials that you would ordinarily get in a traditional deposition, and doing all of it remote, just without the background. Cool. So I think that's about it, guys. That should cover everything for today. We really appreciate all of you guys joining. We hope that you guys found this informative. We will send out on our side a summary of any of the videos that we shared today so you guys can see that. And if you guys have any questions or want a rate card once we send that out, just please request it. Our team will respond back, and we can get that moving for you. Dylan, is there anything else that I missed?
Are we going to host a breakout for people who want to try this on their own?
Yeah, why don't we do that? I will set up a Zoom meeting and share that in this chat thread, and people will be able to join. Dylan, if you want to keep everyone on this call so that way they're able to see that link once I do it.
Sure. So anybody that wants to play around with exhibits and ask specific questions and see how things are done by yourself, you can join this new Zoom meeting that Greg is going to put in the Slack, in the chat feature here, and we'll see you right there after this webinar.
Yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind, obviously you guys joined today as a webinar, so you don't have the same full functionality that we'd have for a Zoom meeting. I probably forgot to point that out earlier. But that's where Steno, that's where as you guys see this, you will be able to see the full functionality. Steno, active. Okay, you guys should see this coming over now in the chat thread. That's the meeting. Dylan, I'm going to jump off. If you can stay on this for 5 minutes just to make sure that everyone's able to click that link before they do that, or before you close it.
Sure.
I'm going to join this other Zoom meeting, and I will see anyone over there that wants to do a working session momentarily.